Yeah, we already kind of talked through some of this, so these next few slides might go a little faster. But the first big point to really emphasize here is the public versus private focus, and who ultimately is going to own all of this infrastructure. When we build renewable infrastructure, who's actually going to own and control it? Is it going to be the people? Is it going to be communities? Is it going to be workers? Or is it going to be the capitalists? So the eco-socialist Green New Deal centers public ownership and public control as the driver of the social transition. So, we're talking about socialization of major sectors of the economy, energy, transit, agriculture, various things. And that means public or worker ownership, as makes sense, right? We want communities ultimately to be able to practice local democratic control and have, communities weigh in on the policies that affect their lives. That's one of the key values of the Green Party. That's what it means to have grassroots democracy. So we're saying that grassroots democracy has to extend, beyond the kind of typical political sphere that we think of into economics too. That all of the stuff around this economic transition and renewable energy and all has to also be democratized. And this is in stark contrast to the Democrats, who prioritize paying the bad actors, paying the corporations and the capitalists who got us to this point, paying them extra money out of public dollars, out of public resources, and asking them to please do something about this, and subsidizing the lifestyles of more wealthy people, and hoping that that's enough to kind of drive change. So the Democratic policy, So the Democratic policy does things like focus on consumer changes instead of system change. So they do things like tax incentives for solar panels or electric cars and things like that. And if you see folks, including, we talked about Ocasio-Cortez as kind of kickstarting Green New Deal from the Democratic side. She, among all the others, have been running around talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and how amazing it is because it does things like give, a few $1,000s off of the price of an electric car and and subsidizes solar panels and things like that. But this is exactly the problem. Those kind of subsidies only go to middle class or wealthy folks who can kind of make those investments, right? It's trying to prod people to change their behavior as opposed to changing the system as a whole, saying that the system, our entire society has to decide to move off of fossil fuels and not just individuals here and there when they feel like it and they think that the subsidy's enough and all that stuff.
And if you're a renter, all of that's off the table.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a renter and we're in the middle of a affordable housing crisis, right? And interest rates are going up and all that as the Fed tries to, crush the working class in order to drive back inflation. But if you're a renter, you can't put solar panels on your house. And even if you did, you'd be investing in the person that's exploiting you and hoarding housing, right? You'd be investing in them long term, not yourself. And same with EVs. You can get an EV, but will your landlord even let you install, a charging station outside your house? And again, if you do, then what you really did is for the long term gave him a thing he can put onto his, on the listing that makes it more attractive to people, right? Mm-hmm. You're investing in your landlord, not in yourself. Right. The same goes for weatherization and all those things. Anything a renter does, it just takes that investment and pushes it straight into the people that are exploiting them for rent. So, it really needs to be understood that, how this is by design excluding the working class, which means the working class is going to fall farther and farther behind on these issues. And then they're going to blame us. Yeah. Right? Once all the wealthy middle class people are driving their EVs and have weatherized their homes and have solar panels on their, on their houses and their summer houses, then they're going to say, well, what are you doing? Why, they're going to point to the fact that now the working class are the main consumer level emitters. And I thoroughly believe that this is by design. And it's a surefire way to get to ecofascism.
Yeah.
Down the line.
Yeah, by setting that policy that, as you mentioned in the last slide, it puts all the weight of the change on individual behaviors. which will eventually filter down to blaming working class and poor people for not doing more or doing their part or whatever, which takes away emphasis on the fact that, what is it, like 70% of carbon emissions come from like 10 corporations or something.
Companies.
Yeah, I forget exactly how many. Most of those companies are probably owned by the same umbrella corporations anyway. So, and then we mentioned the U.S. military, for example, is a giant emitter. It emits more than like most other countries.
It's the single largest emitting entity.
Yeah.
So there might be sectors, there might be sectors of the economy that when you combine all the corporations across the sector, they might emit more. But when it comes to one actor, the U.S. military is number one. A sector that might beat it would be something like concrete that you wouldn't think of. But concrete is responsible for 8% of CO2 emissions, like on its own, that one industry. So, and it doesn't have to be. There's ways today with modern technology to make concrete that's not pumping CO2 into our atmosphere, but the way it's been done is the way it's profitable, so they're not changing.
Yeah, that's an important point about the eco-socialist Green New Deal, that we have all of the technology to address all these issues. It's not that we can't do it technologically. It's that we're simply just not doing it from a political, social policy point of view. So this is why
we can do it now without even accounting for the fact that we're going to see improvements in those, right? All of these sectors, all these new green sectors are under invested in. They have underinvestment in research. They have underinvestment in new technologies and addressing the issues. And and wind is a good place to look at it, right? When we started pushing out wind, one of the big criticisms was, the giant blades aren't recyclable. Well, now there is commercial movement for recyclable blades. So when you start moving in this direction, it will then kind of exponentially spill over and cause new technological advances. So we can do it with what we have now, and as time goes on, we'll get even better at what we're able to do as technology, steps up as the focus and investment comes.
Let's go to the next slide. We don't get stuck too long here.
Yeah, just that last point again. It's the Democrats' climate plan, whether it be the Inflation Reduction Act or CEJA in Illinois or other, Democratic Party pushed quote unquote climate plans, in reality are massive transfers of public funds into private pockets, right? Massive amounts of money are being moved from public, our tax dollars, our, public funds going straight into the pockets of corporations to pay them to do better. And it really needs to be understood, that way as a massive transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top yet again, from our this leadership across the country, whether it's Republican or Democrat.